Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how to factor trinomials when the leading coefficient is 1. Now let's talk about this just a few minutes before we figure out how to actually do factoring. First of all, what is factoring? Factoring is changing additions and subtractions into multiplication. Okay? In other words, how can I take these three terms, x squared plus 7x plus 10, and change it into something where I multiply two or more terms to get this? Okay, for an example of like real simple factoring would be something like 10. For example, what do I need to multiply to get 10? What two terms can I multiply to get 10? And you can get obviously 2 times 5, 10 times 1, okay, all sorts of things. So again, factoring is basically changing terms, they can be single terms like this one or additions and subtractions like this one, into multiplications to get the exact same term, okay? So we're going to find out how to factor this trinomial. And again, when the leading coefficient is 1. Now what is a coefficient? A coefficient is the number that's in front of the variable, or when there's no variable, it's the number itself. In this particular problem, the coefficient in front of the x squared would be 1. The coefficient in front of the x would be 7, and the coefficient at the end, or the number at the very end, would be 10. Okay? So, to factor this trinomial, what do? All trinomials can break down into binomials times binomials. And what you do is you say, okay, so when the leading coefficient is 1 in front of the x squared, basically what you're saying is just x times x will give you the x squared. And that's why we need this to be a 1, so that we don't have to say like 3x times 2x or something like that. You want to make this a 1 somehow. Then what you do is you look at the constant, or at the number at the very, very end, and you ask yourself this question. What two factors add or multiply to get the positive 10, but add up to positive 7, the coefficient in the middle term? Okay, so that's the question you always ask. What two factors multiply to get positive 10, and you're just looking at just this third term now, but add up to get 7? And in this case, you probably figure out it's just 2 and 5, isn't it? So plus 2 plus 5. When you multiply those two, you get 10, but when you add those two, you get 7. All right? And this basically ends up being your binomial times your binomial to get this trinomial. How do we know that? We're going to check it. Okay? And you check it by using FOIL. In this case, you use FOIL. What does that mean? You multiply the two first terms, so x times x. You multiply the two outside terms, so x times 5. The two inside terms, 2 times x, again plus. And finally, the two last terms, 2 times 5. Add those up, add your like terms, and you get x squared plus 7x plus 10. It matches up to here. Okay? Now that's a real simple example. All right? Let's look at another example down here. We'll call this example 2. So the question is this. Is the leading coefficient 1? And it's not, is it? So what you're going to do, the first thing you do is always factor out a number so that your leading coefficient is 1. All right, there we go. So in order to make this 1, I'm going to factor out 3. So let's factor out the 3 first. Out of all of these terms, that gives me x squared plus, if you factor 3 out of 21, you get 7. And if you factor 3 out of, that should be a 30, sorry, to make my example work. If you factor 3 out of 30, you get plus 10. And look at that. Now you've got the trinomial that we just did up a little bit higher. Okay, and you just go ahead and factor that the same way. So you bring down your 3, you do your 2 binomials, you go x times x, 2 and plus 2 and plus 5, and now you've factored this trinomial 3 times x plus 2 times x plus 5, again factoring meaning that you change everything to multiplications. Okay, I hope that was helpful. I'll do a couple more of these so that you get different kinds of variations. Okay, good luck.